I want to talk about a segment I watched last night on Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I don't watch Tucker a lot. I agree with some of the things he says. I don't necessarily always agree with them, and I don't always agree with the way in which he says things. But he opened his show last night with a segment and really a few thoughts that I think every single Republican politician, Republican candidate, Republican voter, would-be Republican voter needs to hear. The general takeaway of the segment is that Republicans should be doing very well right now in the lead up to the midterms, but frankly, they're not.
Not even close. In fact, all the indications we have right now suggest that despite Joe Biden's well-earned unpopularity, the Democratic Party still, again, as of tonight, has a strong chance of holding Congress in November. The prediction markets, which many believe are more accurate than the polls, overwhelmingly point to the Democrats keeping at least one chamber. And maybe strangest of all, as of this week, Democrats are leading Republicans nationally on the so-called generic ballot by about 4 points. So if you ask people which party do you like more, they say Democrats. And maybe that's why Democrats are raising a lot more money, too. And not just money from their patrons in big tech, but from small dollar donors. That's bad.
So I'm going to get into what my diagnosis of this issue is, and I'll share what Tucker Carlson thinks that Republicans need to do to turn this around. There's a little bit of overlap between the two of us, but I think we find fault and blame in fundamentally two different places. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, came out. There's this clip of him going around that talks about the fact that he doesn't believe Republicans will retake the Senate. Or that it'll be less likely for them to retake the Senate than to retake the House. And here's what Mitch McConnell said about that.
There's probably a greater likelihood the House flips than the Senate. Candidate quality has a lot to do with the outcome.
So I agree that in some instances it's the quality of the candidate, but that is directly tied to the quality of their messaging and what they're choosing to focus on. Let's go to the state of Pennsylvania. There's a high-profile Senate race there. Dr. Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, is running on the Republican side, and he's had a couple of videos as of late that are, frankly, a joke.
I thought I'd do some grocery shopping. I'm at Wegner's, and my wife wants some vegetables for crudité, right? So here's a broccoli. That's $2, not a ton of broccoli there. There's some asparagus. That's $4. Yep. Carrots. That's $4 more. That's $10 of vegetables there. And then we need some guacamole. That's $4 more. And she loves salsa. Yeah, there's salsa there. $6. Must be a shortage of salsa. Guys, that's $20 for crudité. And this doesn't include the tequila. I mean, that's outrageous. And we got Joe Biden to thank for this.
It's hard to sound more disconnected than to talk about the cost of crudité. And I had to Google crudité, and I consider myself to be a little bit bougie, and I didn't even know what that was. But it's not just this silly little video in the grocery store. Dr. Oz's team put out what I believe is probably the worst campaign ad I have ever seen targeting his Democratic opponent.
Now that John Fetterman claims to be recovering, let's pull back his hoodie and examine what's in his head. Looks like he has some screws loose. What's this? Fetterman wants to release 1/3 of all prisoners. That's crazy! Spend more tax dollars, everything will cost more. That's nuts. Slow energy production, gas prices will skyrocket. That's ridiculous. Socialized medicine? Where do you get these crazy ideas? Now it makes sense. Better close it up. John Fetterman is crazier than you think.
Dr. Mehmet Oz is an example of a larger issue with Republican politicians and Republican candidates that's going on right now. Republicans are failing to meet the seriousness of the moment. When I see those two videos from Dr. Oz, he seems like a joke. He seems unserious at a time that is deadly serious in our country. When Americans are struggling financially, when crime is absolutely out of control, when we have hundreds of thousands of people flooding into our country along the southern border. All of that going on, and you have candidates that are a joke.
Let's pull back his hoodie and examine what's in his head. Looks like he has some screws loose. What's this?
And it's not just Dr. Oz. Kerry Lake, the Republican candidate for governor in Arizona, talking about big dick energy, referring to other Republican politicians.
The guy has bigger... Okay. Wait, let me think about how I want to word this. My staff always says, whatever you do, do not say balls. So I'm not going to say it. I'll tell you what he's got. I don't know if you heard of this, but he's got BDE. Anybody know what that means? Ask your kids about it later.
Again, Republicans need to meet the seriousness of the moment. And that is what they're failing to do. Now, you might say, well, Brandi, there are some really bad Democratic candidates as well. There are, but there are none out there who are just straight up acting like clowns. Now, their ideas might be funny. Their platforms might be a joke. But they're not out there acting unserious about the challenges facing our country. They're not airing completely bizarre, idiotic campaign ads that have nothing to do with the problems facing our country.
Looks like he has some screws loose. What's this?
They don't have gubernatorial candidates talking about big dick energy.
My staff always says, whatever you do, do not say balls.
So yes, it is a candidate quality issue. And yes, it is a messaging issue. But it's also a maturity issue. This is a serious time for Americans. You know, Tucker Carlson's diagnosis for this is that Republicans need to be laser focused on two issues, which really are the same issue, the crime crisis domestically and also the issue along the southern border. And I don't disagree with Tucker Carlson that Republicans need to get their messaging on point. They need to focus on the problems that have worsened under Democrats and need to offer solutions to those problems. But if they can't do that with an ounce of seriousness,
whatever you do, do not say balls.
Those are things that might ingratiate you to a certain segment of your base, but they don't translate to competency. And I'm sorry, when you're an American that's struggling financially, can't pay for gas, can't pay for food, you're going to prioritize competency. Because when you're acting like everything's a big joke, things are deathly serious for them. So if Republican candidates want to win, it's time that they start acting like it.